Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to take an extended look at the chaos on the roads leading to Dover and Folkestone that I discussed a couple of days ago, and consider how, regardless of where you like to think most of the blame lies, how it demonstrates just how important freedom of movement is to us. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So we've been having some serious problems yet again on the roads leading up to Dover and Folkestone. Interestingly, when I posted my earlier video on Thursday, I think it was, there was some smart ass in the comments trying to deny it, as if they thought they could make it an issue of one person's word against another, and then to present what they thought was their masterstroke. They claimed to be living in Kent, thus giving them geographical superiority. Then someone else in the comments who said they lived in Kent, and they said the problem was so bad that traffic was spilling out onto other roads in an attempt to bypass. And you think, who to believe? I know, we've got cameras on the M20, publicly available when they haven't turned them off. Even at the time I was preparing this video, which was after a full week of chaos, this was the image between junctions 10 and 11, which anyone can look up on Google Maps, as being some way off the ports, or this stretch with the cones in place for Operation Stack. And you know, you could see the things stretching way before the ports. We also see the BBC reporting that Dover Council have said that if the problems aren't sorted, they're going to be declaring a major incident this weekend. So anyway, that nonsense aside, on to the main point I want to bring up, and it's this. These massive queues represent huge delays in getting between Britain and France for both trucks and cars. You know, delaying trucks has got obviously clear problems for our economy and consumer choice, and when it comes to it, the price of the goods that we can get. The longer it takes to get through the trade barriers that we erected, the longer it takes for those goods to get to their customers. That means the intended EU customers are having to wait longer and will be more inclined to switch supplier from inside the single market, where the same goods will be both cheaper and delivered more quickly. Cheaper because, of course, if it takes longer to deliver, well, the transport costs go up. You have to pay the lorry drivers more because they're spending longer working. You know, of course, if those goods are only available in Britain, okay, EU customers may have to put up with the delays until they end up being priced out of their range. But all that means is that the future of British production is for one of two types of goods. First, goods that only we make. That's an extremely limited potential for our economy. Or second, goods that others produce as well, but which are in such demand that it's not possible to get enough from outside Britain alone. And it's simply not possible to compete when British businesses have just been saddled with extra costs in terms of both paperwork and transport when exporting to their most important market. It's not like British producers before Brexit were making whack-eye profit margins compared to their European competitors. So now they were on pretty much an even keel. Now they've been landed with extra costs. And it's not like these costs went down for other markets. They just didn't always go up. And this is a direct consequence of losing freedom of movement. Brexit supporters were encouraged to cheer the end of freedom of movement as if it meant sticking two fingers up at foreigners. That's what they were told it was. But we've not really curtailed the freedom of movement of these foreigners that the xenophobic section of Brexit support seems to have an irrational hatred for. In fact, our new immigration system actually makes it easier for foreign workers to get well-paid jobs in the UK from much further afield, you know, Asia and Africa and so on. We used to have free access to these jobs for EU citizens, of course, but now it's for people everywhere, all over the world. The only difficulty our immigration system puts in place is for poorly paid jobs that no bugger wants to do. Well, that's basically the jobs that British people either do not want to do or for whom there are not enough of us to fill the vacancies. Key workers in food production, processing, transport, workers in the NHS, in care homes, in education, manufacturing even in some sectors. Lots and lots of positions that are not being filled because there aren't enough people in Britain to fill them. Or even when we might have the physical numbers, they're not in the right location. You can't expect someone in Middlesbrough to take a low-paid job in Berkshire, even if public transport were a lot better. It's a 500-mile round trip. Not exactly feasible. That is the problem with the troglodytes that I keep getting furrowing their brows as they fail to understand. How How can we have lots of job vacancies who also got people out of work? It just doesn't add up. Not only might there be a mismatch in skills, the country is somewhat larger than a few square miles. It's no good if you've got a big old group of unemployed people up here, there's no jobs there, and all the jobs are down here, there's no people there. So we didn't gain ourselves from an end to freedom of movement, we just lost. We lost the ability to attract workers into key positions. Consider what that means for British workers. So let's say you work for a company that employs 10 people. It might be a small restaurant, say, but you can't find a cook. Skills job. Not usually a well-paid job, but certainly a skills job. Now, let's say you can fill every other position with local workers, but you can't get the cook. So you increase the wage as far as you can without going bust. There's still no cook because thanks to the loss of freedom of movement, they are now much in demand. So your business can't manage. Maybe you try and get someone who isn't really up to it, just out of desperation. It's rubbish. So bad that even Gordon Ramsay can't save your business. So you have to close. What happens to those other 9 local British workers? Those jobs are gone as well. And that's what's happening in any business. If you can't get enough to actually run your business, everyone loses their jobs. And that's what's happening around the country. Small and medium-sized businesses that need a certain number of staff to operate. It's not like a larger one. A larger one can maybe scale back its business to match the available workforce, though even that is a loss to the local and national economy. But the business is more binary. You know, for a small or medium-sized business, either it has the staff to operate or it doesn't. If it doesn't, it has to close, and then everyone loses their job. But that's not the only way people lose their jobs, because there are larger businesses that are forced to relocate part or all of their business to the single market in order to cope. In fact, the British government actively encouraged businesses to do this to get over the new trade barriers, because the government said, come to us, we'll help you deal with these new Brexit situations. So business will go, right, we've got a massive problem here. The government will go, well, tell you what, relocate in Holland or something. If part of your business moves overseas, that means local British workers lose their jobs, and those positions are filled with French or Dutch workers, for example. And even if some of the British staff are able to relocate themselves, assuming it's possible with the exit from the single market, their pay packets are still leaving the country and they're now paying taxes in the EU. And all because we stopped freedom of movement. And that's really important because no matter what happens after the next election, it doesn't look like we're getting it back anytime soon. If the Conservatives remain in government, we can kiss goodbye to freedom of movement for a very long time indeed. But even if Labour win, they're going to reduce trade barriers with closer EU alignment, they've said. But they are currently ruling out freedom of movement. So, that would mean losing out big time in the next Parliament as well. Now, as I have said in the past, it's not like, it's a hopeless situation. Just because Labour is saying no to freedom of movement doesn't mean they're saying no to freedom of movement. I'm not suggesting they'll be lying on their manifesto. And in actual fact, the manifesto isn't even written. I know I'm biased, but it's the Tories that tell lies in their manifesto. What I mean is, and I've said this a few times before, the next election could well bring another majority Conservative government. Disaster. If it doesn't, it's likely to bring a hung parliament. If it removes the Tories from power, it's likely to be with a hung parliament. Labour are very, very unlikely to be able to form a majority government. I just don't see it. If Labour can form a minority government, and right now that looks like the best option, they will need other parties to support them. Those other parties are not saying no to freedom of movement. In fact, the Liberal Democrats have been quite clear on their policy on rejoining the single market, including freedom of movement. So if Labour need Liberal Democrat support, say, and they may need more than that, then they will have to come to agreement on at least some areas of common interest. And Labour at that point could go, well, yeah, we were totally sold on this no freedom of movement. Yeah, we can compromise there. And that's definitely going to mean compromising position on Brexit policies like that. So I can absolutely say freedom of movement being on the table in the next Parliament if Labour can replace the Conservatives in government, but it is not certain with the current policy. And it'll be a lot easier if freedom of movement is much less divisive as a topic in 2 years' time. So really what we want is we want more of the British public to appreciate freedom of movement, which is why it's important to make sure that as many people as possible are talked to and alerted to the realities of freedom of movement. It doesn't harm us. It helps us. After all, Why did so many wealthy and powerful European countries, including the UK, push for freedom of movement between their own lands and others if it weren't in our and their interests? But although there is a clear imperative for freedom of movement on trade grounds, unfortunately, that's probably not what's going to swing it for many voters. After all, people do not see the strands linking cause and effect when it comes to trade. It needs to be more personal. So rather than the miles of tailbacks of trucks being the tipping point, it might well be the cars that do it. People trying to leave for Easter getaways by car are starting to see the difference that Brexit is having on their holiday plans. Anecdotal cases of British people being upset that they can no longer use the much quicker EU lines at passport control and they have to stand around in the rest of the world line are going to be part of this as well. GB News, I noticed, posted an article to try and help would-be holidaymakers understand the new rules and how best to cope. Oh, how civically minded of them, you may think. I don't know. I don't see articles explaining to people how they might be able to get extra help to pay the bills or otherwise manage the terrible rise in the cost of living. I think it's more that they want to reduce the level of unexpected frustration when going on holiday or travelling for whatever reason, which will only serve to make people question Brexit. Because that might be something, oddly enough, that works better than crushing our trade. Inconvenience for British tourists. Maybe they won't think stopping freedom of movement was such a good idea when they realise it was their freedom that was taken away. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.